Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our VGC Toronto review from last year, Regulation H once again. Today, we have Swiss stage round number 6 between Marco Silva, one of the best VGC players of this past year, along with Junxi Zhu, one of the newer faces onto the scene. And as you got a sneak peek of the teams here, this is going to be an absolute Regulation H slugfest. We have Ursalunas on both sides. We have incredibly powerful Pokemon, especially here for Marco Silva. Ursaluna with the Guts and Flame Orb, that's the most standard you're going to get. Terra Ghost with Headlong Rush, Facade, Earthquake, and Protect. Super standard. Jumpluff here taking advantage of the sun that we'll talk about later with Terra Water, Covert Cloak to avoid Fake Out, Chlorophyll, Sleep Powder, Sunny Day Tailwind, and Rage Powder. Very supportive. Charizard with choice specs. This is not something that we see often, but this thing can still hit like a truck with that solar power. Air Slash, Heat Wave, Overheat, Weather Ball, and Terra Ghost. Torkoal here to set the sun and do a lot of damage. That eject pack, and that's an incredibly interesting tech that I like seeing this time around. Helping Hand Eruption, Overheat, Protect with that Terra Fire to do even more damage. Incineroar for a little bit more support, as well as utility, as well as damage. It just does it all. Citrus Berry, Terra Ghost, Intimidate, Fake Out, Flare Blitz, Knockoff, and Parting Shot. 2 damaging moves on this one. And then Porygon 2. We do have a Tailwind Cinder, but we have both Tailwind and Trick Room here. We have some flexible modes. Porygon 2 does have that Terra Fighting. I like the tech. The Eviolite to buff up its defenses. Download can get some extra stats as well. And then we have the moves there. Marco is on a 17 win streak. That is just absolutely incredible. I imagine that comes from his previous tournament as well. I mean, as we just said, Marco was one of the most successful players in Regulation H. Only one tournament, I believe, but was consistently in top cuts and consistently one of the top performers of this regulation here. And on the other side of the table, Junxi Zhu, again, one of the newer players, but also bringing a powerhouse team. We have Rillaboom with the Terra Fire, Assault Vest, Grassy Surge, Fake Out, Grassy Glide, Woodhammer, and High Horsepower. Ursaluna, it's the exact same set, basically, with Facade, Headlong Rush, Earthquake, Protect. We might see some differences in how the stats are trained, which could come up. Goldengo here, one of the most popular Pokemon of the regulation, with Terra Steel, Choice Specs, Good as Gold, Make It Rain, Power Gem, Shadow Ball, and Thunderbolt. Mousehold 4 support here with that Rocky Helmet and Redirection. Follow Me. Friend Guard reduces damage across the board. Terra Poison, Super Fang, Faint, and Protect. Dragonite with the loaded dice. Terra Ghost as well with the multi-scale. Scale Shot, Haze, Tailwind, and Protect. Terra Ghost to make sure that it can still avoid Fake Out even though it doesn't have that inner focus. And then Annihilate here with Defiant up against any potential Incineroar, Intimidates, or any other stat drops. Terra Steel with the Focus Sash. Rage Fist, Close Combat, Final Gambit, and Protect. A lot of these are incredibly standard sets. I mean, honestly, all of these are incredibly standard sets for a lot of these Pokemon here. The only thing that you might see different is sometimes Mousehold has some damaging moves, but otherwise, you have an incredibly supportive Pokemon for Junxi, and it's his first time going 5-0, as we see there. Again, a newer player than Marco Silva, potentially, and a newer player to the stream overall, but both these players have brought absolutely powerhouse teams. These are kind of two sides of Regulation H that that we want to be seeing. We've seen some interesting teams, we've seen some spicy stuff, but now we are getting into the meat and potatoes of this format. Dragonite and Ursaluna versus Porygon 2 and Charizard. So Marco Silva, you have Porygon 2, you have Charizard on the field, you almost certainly have Torkoal in the back. Junxi Zhu, you have your Ursaluna, you have your Dragonite. I don't believe we had any Trick Room setters for Junxi, and I think the only speed control was this Dragonite with Tailwind. You now have to be concerned if you do try to set up Tailwind. Porygon 2 going for the Trick Room here is going to put Junxi in a pretty rough spot. We do see the Torkoal and the Incineroar in the back there for Marco. Pretty reasonable, going for that full Trick Room firepower mode, literally and figuratively. And we do see the swap out, Incineroar making its way on to the battlefield. Both these Pokemon are vulnerable to Intimidate here. Notably, Ursaluna does not have its massive damage boost yet. That's going to happen at the end of this turn. Dragonite does go for the Protect, doesn't want to take any damage just yet, and doesn't want to set that Tailwind into a potential Trick Room. And then Ursaluna goes for Protect as well. This is going to guarantee that the burn goes up and that the multi-scale is preserved. And Porygon 2 goes for the Ice Beam. No Trick Room here. Does not want to give Ursaluna more room to maneuver. Now, Marco is in a position where Fake Out into the Ursaluna, as well as potential Protect on the Recover on the Porygon, or Trick Room here, is going to be pretty big. Ursaluna can, of course, go for that Terra Ghost. Junxi's in a little bit of a tough spot. Do you Terra Ghost the Ursaluna or do you Terra Ghost the Dragonite? If you get the call right, you get to attack with both Pokemon. If you don't get to attack with either. And right now for this Dragonite, you want to go for scale shots here. I almost imagine Marco wanting to, Junxi wanting to swap this Dragonite out. I don't know if Scale Shot does all that much here, especially at -1. Your Haze isn't going to do anything, your Tailwind isn't going to do anything, and Protect is not going to do anything. So we do see the swap out. I think if you're Marco, that might tell you that this Ursaluna is going for the Terra Ghost, and Mousehold makes its way back in, but there is no Terra Ghost here. Ursaluna is just going to flinch as this Trick Room goes up. Never mind, it's Ice Beam. I thought we saw the Trick Room get clicked. Mousehold takes even more damage, and it gets frozen. Oh, that is incredibly unfortunate for Junxi Zhu. No Trick Room going up, additional damage out of the Porygon too, and Ursaluna does not get to move. Takes some additional damage from the burn, along with that fake out damage. It's already at -1 from the Intimidate. That said, it's still going to be hitting like an absolute truck. Mousehold now with the Friend Guard on the field as well is going to make sure that there's even less damage going in to that Ursaluna. So it's going to be hard to take down, but not impossible. Marco not setting up the Trick Room quite yet means this Ursaluna is not, doing its thing quite as well as it could. And I think for Junxi, swapping out that Dragonite is because you were expecting Tailwind to come up. But now if you're Marco, there's no Dragonite on the field. Ursaluna is just continuing to slowly get chipped away. Mousehold is frozen solid, and you don't really have to set up Trick Room right now. You can continue to wait on it. It is not, right now, actually a win condition. So Ursaluna protects itself from the parting shot. Trick Room goes up. This is actually pretty big. Incineroar has to stay on the field so it can't get an additional Intimidate off. So Junxi effectively just delayed a -2 to that attack stat for right now. Ursaluna is going to be one of the fastest, or is probably going to be the fastest thing on the field. I don't know how fast that is quite going to be. It entirely depends on how those speed stats were trained. I wouldn't be surprised if this Ursaluna does have a decent amount of speed in it just because of that Tailwind. We do see a Terastallization coming out here. I do believe this is from Mark. Oh no, that is from Junxi. So that is the Ursaluna going to Terra Ghost here. That is incredibly interesting. You're not going to get hit by Fake Out. I wonder, are you trying to avoid the Ice Beam is the only thing that I can think of. Marco going for the Terra Ghost as well for this Incineroar. Both Pokemon going for Terastallization here. Both players doing it on the same turn. Notably, this does make Incineroar immune to Facade. We could see Junxi going for that. At the same time, though, something like a high horsepower is going to be just as effective, and Mousehold continues to remain frozen solid. Terra Blast comes through from the Porygon 2 here. A stab normal type move, taking that Mousehold down to just a sliver of HP. Headlong Rush does not KO the Incineroar. That -1 coming in pretty big. A defense drop on both stats for Ursaluna. This is going to be a parting shot now coming out from the Incineroar after it eats its Citrus Berry, recovers to just above half HP. Bulky Incineroar, classic Citrus Berry. That is one of the most standard sets we have ever seen on Incineroar. So Ursaluna now at -2 attack, -1 defense, -1 special defense. What are we going to see here from Marco Silva? I imagine you would bring in the Torkoal since you got that Trick Room up, and that is exactly what we see. Eruption, Heat Wave, Terra Blast, whatever is needed, Torkoal has got it. Ursaluna takes a little bit more chip damage from its burn, and now for Marco, you're in a phenomenal spot. You have Torkoal, which loves to be on the field right now. Ice Beam can hit either of these Pokemon, and Eruption should be able to do plenty of damage to take out both of Junxi's Pokemon on the field right now. You do still have Dragonite in the back to worry about, and you do have a mystery fourth Pokemon, but with still a few turns of Trick Room left, I believe there's still 3 turns of Trick Room, this is going to be more than enough for Marco to at least get a massive Pokemon advantage. Dragonite makes its way out onto the battlefield here. It does have multi-scale, so along with resisting this Eruption, it should remain it should remain on the field, should be rather healthy. Mousehold is going to go down here. Dragonite is only going to take a little bit of damage there, but if we see an Ice Beam come out from Marco, this should be more than enough to take it out, or at least do a lot of damage. Yeah, with that 4 times effectiveness and no multi-scale to stop it. Dragonite falls. Junxi is going to be bringing in an Ursaluna, and again, that 4th mystery Pokemon. Trick Room should remain up for 2 more turns, and Junxi can block it with a Protect, but is going to have to pray that that last turn is not going to ruin everything. We do see the Rillaboom make its way on to the battlefield. Again, fake out here is certainly an option you could go for, but even if you go for fake out, protect from the Ursaluna is almost still going to have to be what you need. Ursaluna notably does not have those defense drops, so we could see Facade come from this Ursaluna into the Torkoal along with fake out from the Rillaboom, but even then that is a tough call to make right now. If you don't go for protect and Porygon 2 gets a potential freeze, or the Ice Beam comes through, or if for whatever reason Torkoal either swaps into Incineroar or is protected, and you don't get, you don't make a good move here, that's going to be tough. Fake out does go into the Torkoal. It takes a little bit of damage. Torkoal's not going to be able to move this turn. We do see the Ice Beam come out of the Porygon 2. This is an Assault Vest Rillaboom, so it does tank it with some damage left over. We see the Facade in the Porygon 2, but Porygon 2 does not fall. Grassy Terrain is going to heal the Torkoal back up a little bit. Eruption is going to be slightly weakened, but only slightly so. Now, notably, this is where Ursaluna can go for the Protect to stall out what I believe should be the last turn of Trick Room. If I'm wrong, then I don't think it's going to matter overall. Yeah, I couldn't quite see it. I think this is the last turn of Trick Room. And if it is, we see Marco making a pretty good call here, which would be to bring in potentially the Charizard. Sun should remain up for at least a couple more turns. And if you can go for Eruption here, you might have to take a Grassy Glide from Rillaboom, which would, again, neuter the damage just a little bit more, but Eruption is still going to do quite a bit to this Ursaluna, and if you bring in Charizard and this Ursaluna doesn't go for Protect, you're going to get a ton of damage onto the Ursaluna, probably enough that Incineroar could come in on the back and take care of things, and Junxi Zhu sees the writing on the wall and concedes, taking us into game number 2. So we saw Marco there maneuver very, very well. Junxi's early turns felt okay, but not getting the Tailwind set up is a very difficult space to be in when you're worried about Trick Room that much that your Dragonite just kind of sits on the field and doesn't really get anything done. It slows things down, and again, it puts you on the back foot. That tempo that we were talking about before in previous videos, having tempo, being the person with the with control of the tempo of the game, usually means you're going to be able to make easier moves. Not necessarily better all the time, but easier. Your decisions become a lot easier. So going into this game number 2, again, looking for Junxi, again, setting up Tailwind into a potential Trick Room is tough, but if you can get that Tailwind up and you can be incredibly aggressive early, I think that is what Junxi needs to do in order to get this to a game number 3. But game number 2, for our win and in, whoever wins this should be guaranteed going to day 2, even if they lose their next 2 games. And we see a very similar lead from both players here. Marco going for the Porygon 2 and the Charizard once again. It worked so well before. And then Junxi Zhu, we have the Annihilate and the Dragonite. Annihilate, again, incredibly offensive here. Built to take out this Porygon 2, but we have this Terra Fighting, which I am stoked to see on this Porygon 2. I really, really like that adjustment. Now, again, Dragonite can go for Tailwind here. I very much understand that Junxi does not click the Tailwind and instead potentially goes for something like another Scale Shot. Scale Shot Final Gambit, trying to take out this Porygon 2, even if you have to lose an Annihilate in the process, could be quite effective. Now, for Marco, you have to change it up, I think. I don't think you can just keep going on what you did before. I think getting an early Trick Room setup is not too bad. At the same time, going for Ice Beam into that Dragonite is going to feel really, really good, especially if you can get something like a Heat Wave off from this Charizard to break the multi-scale first like we saw before. It is going to be the Air Slash into the Annihilate. It's super effective, but does not KO it, but the flinch comes through. We do see the Scale Shot into the Charizard. I think it's going to be just under the amount of damage necessary to KO it if it gets a full 5. Yeah, that's just not quite going to be a KO unless we get a crit. No crit. Charizard just survives, and that Annihilate flinching, I think that just seals the deal already for this game. I know it's incredibly early, but that Trick Room just got set up. Okay, hold on. Holding. Charizard was the fastest thing on the field. Dragonite's probably the fastest now, right, with that Scale Shot. Charizard is incredibly weak. Porygon 2 is now the fastest thing on the field. With that Trick Room setup, yeah, I don't know. Annihilate, dang, that is incredibly tough. Essentially brought down to its Focus Sash, but that flinch is the most important part. A potential Drain Punch into the Porygon 2, while it wouldn't have been super effective, would have gotten a good amount of additional HP, would have allowed Annihilate to safely attack again on this turn into either of those slots. Both Pokemon here go for Protect, just trying to stall out more turns of this Trick Room. Ice Beam goes through into the Dragonite slot again, just trying to break that multi-scale before Charizard gets another attack off here. It is going to be that Air Slash. Also going into the Dragonite would have left Annihilate alive and able to function on its own this turn. That's incredibly interesting. A very smart move from Marco. I don't know if Marco was anticipating the Protect or the swap out there, but doubling up into the Dragonite slot, that is definitely good info for Junxi to know. Showing a pretty good priority onto that Dragonite, which is fair, right? Scale Shot can do a lot of damage. We just saw it do a lot to this Charizard, who, if we get Solar Power active, that Charizard is going to just knock itself out, essentially, without even having to do anything. But for Junxi now, yeah, getting that Dragonite out of there is probably what you have to do. I think your win conditions at this point is just Scale Shot for days. Gholdengo makes its way onto the battlefield here. It is going to be vulnerable to any potential fire attacks here. Ice Beam with a critical hit, not necessary, but a little salt in the wound into the Annihilate. Annihilate goes down. Now, what move is Charizard going for? It is going to be that Air Slot, or well, it's Choice Specs. What am I saying? Going into the Gholdengo, does about a third of its HP, maybe a little bit more than a quarter. And now, though, for Marco, I think you're not feeling too bad. This Gholdengo is on the battlefield. I don't know if it's faster than the Charizard or not. That is going to be a big question. Both of them are Choice Spec, and we could potentially see Fake Out come in as well if we see Rillaboom making its way back out onto the battlefield. That would be a tough position for Junxi to be in, bringing in two Pokemon that are incredibly weak to Fire-type moves. Charizard, of course, not in that right now, but Air Slash does do quite a bit of work into it. We see Junxi taking some time here, trying to figure things out. We could see Dragonite potentially making its way back out onto the battlefield, trying to cycle through. Trying to cycle through another round of Protects. We could see potentially another swap, take the Dragonite out. Right now, neither of these Pokemon are incredibly worried about this Charizard. The main concern is Ice Beam into Dragonite. And again, Air Slash is the required move here, so Gholdengo should be able to get off whatever move it wants. We did see Power Gem, I believe. Power Gem could be pretty useful, or I'm voice crack there. Power Gem could be pretty useful in this specific situation, especially if Marco brought the same few Pokemon from before. So I would imagine something. Ooh, we don't see a Protect from the Dragonite. Ice Beam with the, whoo. Okay, even through the multi-scale does a ton of damage, and we see Make It Rain as the option here. That is going to take out the Charizard. It's going to take Porygon down to a little bit above half HP here. I imagine, are we going to see the Tailwind, or are we going to see the Scale Shot from the Dragonite? It is going to be that Scale Shot. This will make Dragonite basically the fastest thing on the field as soon as Trick Room drops. It does not look like this is going to be enough damage to take out this Porygon 2. I don't think there's two more hits. Yeah, no, even if there was one more hit, that wouldn't have taken it out. So Porygon 2 is still on the field, still feeling pretty good here in this Dragonite without having extreme speed, which is common for Dragonites. Electing instead for Protect is not going to be able to clean up these small damage numbers. That is pretty relevant. Junxi now has a Gholdengo that's kind of just sitting on the field. It's not going to be able to do much. Porygon 2 is going to be able to click Recover, which I think is going to completely undo all of the damage that this Dragonite just went in for. Dragonite's going to have to go for Protect here. That is going to guarantee it survives through the next turn, through to the end of Trick Room, but Gholdengo stays on the battlefield. Eruption comes through, and that's going to be a KO'd Gholdengo. This thing is going down, and it's not even going to be close. Yeah, Dragonite's going to be fine this turn, and again, Trick Room should fade. I'm interested to see what Junxi's fourth Pokemon is. I don't know if we're going to see the Rillaboom again. I don't know if we're going to see Maushold. Last game, Maushold, didn't have the greatest performance, but that's because it was frozen basically the whole time. But notably now, though, Porygon 2 is not going to be going down to another Scale Shot. Ursaluna makes its way on to the battlefield here. Okay, I like this from Junxi. I think this is probably his best bet at being able to get this game back into his favor with another powerful, aggressive Pokemon. So Torkoal does not want to have to take a Headlong Rush, even without it being a Guts boosted Headlong Rush. So we might see a swap here. Go ahead and bring an Incineroar in, get that Intimidate down onto both these physical attackers who now can no longer swap to get rid of it. And then just start Ice Beaming with this Porygon 2. Dragonite does not go for Protect here. It simply can't. We're going to see the Scale Shot come out again, getting some decent damage onto the Porygon 2 here. And the question becomes, who does this Ursaluna target? We do have Earthquake. Are we just going to click it hope for both, and then notably, who is this Porygon 2 attacking and how much damage is it going to do? Dragonite speed rises again. I don't think that's going to matter all that much. It's going to be Headlong Rush into the Porygon 2. Okay, Porygon 2 down. Torkoal still alive and well, and that's going to mean an Incineroar coming in for Marco Silva. So with this Torkoal, how much is Eruption going to do to 2 full HP Pokemon? That is the big question here. Oh, never mind. It's going to be Overheat, not Eruption. All right. I think that's a safe move. I think that's a safe move. You guarantee. Ooh, actually, is it a safe move? Torkoal special attack falls. We do get the eject pack. This is some nice tech. Okay. So you get the Overheat, which I don't know if that's going to be more damage than Eruption. Probably with single target. It's going to be more damage than Eruption. You get to bring the Incineroar in, which already would have been coming in, even though you don't have another swap with one of your Pokemon already KO'd. Torkoal can make its way back out onto the battlefield here. Incineroar can get some fake outs down. I think you almost guaranteed have to fake out into the Ursaluna. We could see a double protect from Junxi here. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. There are still 3 turns of Sunlight, so I don't think you're going to stall that out before the end of the game. But notably, if you can avoid fake out, you can start doing a good bit more damage overall. Dragonite again gets essentially 1 more attack off with Scale Shot, and depending on who you target that into, that just might be the end of the game. Notably, both players, no, actually, Junxi has not gone for Terastallization yet this game, I don't believe. Marco has. Porygon 2 went for that Terra Fighting Terastallization. So this game is still not quite over. Marco is in a good spot, I will say, but this Torkoal is still quite vulnerable. The question becomes, if you target the Torkoal too much, Incineroar is still a very strong Pokemon. It can still get a lot of work done, and with that sun still being up, Flare Blitz is going to hit hard. We could see Marco, is there a world where we see Helping Hand Flare Blitz into the Ursaluna? It is resisted, but that's still going to be a good amount of damage. If we click Eruption here, but Torkoal does not have much HP left, even if it is alive, that's not going to do very much. I think you're priced into clicking Overheat right now. I don't know if you want to risk it missing. Dragonite's gonna be able to get an attack off anyways. Would you rather Overheat into the Ursaluna and go for knockoff into the Dragonite? I think that's the question. At the same time, if Junxi, you could take a risk here if you're Marco and just go for that Eruption. Haze does come through. That could be pretty big for the rest of the game. No stat changes, no Intimidates now, but we do still get a Parting Shot into the Ursaluna. So it's back to -1, not -2. Guts has not triggered yet. That's okay. Maybe that's just a visual bug, but Earthquake comes through. Okay, Incineroar and Torkoal both take damage. I don't think Guts has triggered. That is very strange to me. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out on if we see any burns here. Eruption does come through. It doesn't do much damage, but it does get a little bit more damage onto the Dragonite. Yeah, I don't see that this Ursaluna is burned right now. Okay, yeah. All right, it is burned. Okay. I'm sorry, it is blocked by the overlay. All right, yeah, we see Ursaluna's burned. All right, even through, wow, Earthquake did not do very much damage. I will be honest there. Incineroar is going to get to move first here. How much damage is Flare Blitz going to do? It's going to be a Protect from the Ursaluna. So this is going to make sure that the Sunlight is not up for one last Flare Blitz from this Incineroar here. Again, the game is not over yet. It ain't over till it is over. So sun goes down. That is a little bit more damage from the burn. I honestly, I wonder if that is kind of a moot point there for Junxi. We do see the Helping Hand into the Incineroar. This is the question. If this hits, if this does enough damage, if this takes it out, that is going to be game, and enough damage it does indeed do. Not even a critical hit. And so Marco Silva, with a little bit of luck on his side, manages to take home round number 6, winning in, making it in to day 2. Obviously Junxi Zhu at 5-0. All he has to do is win one of the last few rounds there. But yeah, not seeing that burn on the Incineroar graphic definitely had me confused a little bit towards the end there, but that was tough. If Flare Blitz didn't do enough damage, that would have been, I am almost certain, a game 3 for Junxi. And we saw a little bit of a better adjustment, I think, having some more aggression there, trying to get on the front foot. And definitely had a little bit of control of the tempo for a small bit of the end game there. But Marco Silva, Incineroar is just, I mean, it's just a good Pokemon. What can you say? What can you say? Round 7, we're going to see some more people playing win-and-ins tomorrow. So until next time, y'all be safe, be smart, make wise decisions, and farewell.